Hello, and thanks for joining the Walt Weekly Podcast. My name is Walter Latham Sr., and I'm here with Sergeant Ernest J. Robinson, combat veteran of the Marine Corps. All right, so today we want to talk about a couple of things. First off, we want to talk about birthright citizenship, which will come towards the end of the show. But we want to talk about current events. So we want to start adding adding news that is currently, during this recording, that is currently going on. One thing, there's a couple of things actually. One, I just heard Trump's presser on the airline crash, the collision between a Black Hawk helicopter and a commercial jet over Washington. And it crashed into the Potomac, some parts of it anyway. All right, and then Trump goes on today and says that one of the problems associated with this crash is that for air traffic control, we don't have the best and the brightest. What do you mean by that? Psychologically fit. So he's saying that the crash is a result of incompetent people that were hired under DEI. I mean, if you can extract that from what he said. I mean, y'all guys, I encourage you to go back and take a look at it. But that's what he's saying. So what do you think about the families of the loved ones of the people that died? What are they supposed to think when the president of the United States is blaming DEI for this sort of thing happening? We have the safest airlines. We have the safest flights in the world. I mean, we're safe. Accidents will happen. But he came to conclusions without, the crash happened yesterday, and today, 24 hours later, he's coming to conclusions that it's DEI. And it's not even fully investigated yet.
Yeah. It was less than 24 hours. It happened about 11, between 10 and, about 9:30 and 11:30 last night.
Yeah, last night. Yes, last night. Half a day, all right? I mean, normally with investigations on crashes, on airplane crashes, there's a lengthy investigation, due diligence is performed, recreations of events. But, Trump is already out there saying that, there was a convergence of events that caused this to happen. How do you know? Something did happen. Maybe there were mistakes. It could have been mechanical failure. How are you going to sit there and blame somebody and the investigation is still ongoing? What do you think about that, Ernst?
Well, one, I think there's a couple of things that could have happened. One, our condolences to the crews and families that were on those planes and all the families that have been affected by it, the units that those service members came from as well. Our condolences are definitely, and prayers are with you all. But yes, so as it pertains to that, I think that there's a couple of things that we're not taking into account. One, the fact that the investigation is still ongoing, and suggesting that it was DEI related. One is a continuation of undermining the purpose of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I think it's important to say diversity, equity, and inclusion and not just DEI, because then that becomes some obtuse acronym without any context. But it's also compromising the investigation, because now you're suggesting that the person was either a person of color, or they were a part of the LGBTQ plus community, or some protected group that's protected or included within diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's one thing. So that in itself is dangerous in itself. Two, you have a military helicopter that potentially was conducting some type of exercise. And so therefore we don't know who was on those planes, or who was flying the helicopter, or who was part of those teams directing within air traffic control. Again, there are miscommunications that do occur. So there's, I think, a number of things that have aligned here. And I think, again, to your point, that's the danger of jumping to conclusions. One, without allowing for the investigation to be fully completed, right. And then two, making and then just allowing the space for the families to being able to grieve. You're weaponizing the acronym of DEI to demonize the people who are included within DEI, and then trying to then turn that as a pain point for those who have lost their loved ones. That is the ultimate creation of conflict, chaos, and confusion during a tragedy in which the role of any particular world leader, any leader of an organization, or even the leader of your household is to bring peace to that respective place for those that you are responsible for.
Right.
And I
That's
think
correct.
this was a complete misstep.
Well, I tell you, you mentioned a couple of terms here that I think they need further clarification or definition, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said, DEI, all right, causes us to not have brain power. There's no brain power, referring to the ATC. They are below standard hires when they can't get people, they can't hire people, people don't want the job. There's too many hours and the pay is not good enough. And then one thing here that I need him to define, psychologically superior. What does he mean by psychologically superior? I mean, he's throwing out terms, not realizing the definition of it. I mean, everybody knows what brain power is. You got some brain power. I mean, you think you got brain power. You're below standard hires when people are leaving air traffic control left and right, and they've been severely understaffed for the last 15 years, especially since Ronald Reagan gutted them.
Mm-hmm.
Ronald Reagan gutted air traffic control. He gutted them. So he's throwing out these terms, like you said, Ernest, not realizing that there are actual people that are suffering from the loss of their loved ones.
Mm-hmm. That's not his. He doesn't care about that.
That's what I'm saying.
But the most consistent thing about 47 is that he has sensationalized, used inflammatory language at almost every step of the way since announcing his candidacy, his first candidacy, attempt at candidacy back in 2011. But even from 2015 and so forth and so on. So this is pretty standard, par for the course when it comes down to the things that he's saying. But everything that is stemming from the lack of brain power, the talking
psychologically
about
superior.
Right, but those are kind of remnants of what white supremacists would say back in the day as far as not being capable. I mean, again, I'm not going to necessarily, I'll use a pilot and the black quarterback.
Yeah, you was a pilot and a black quarterback.
Yeah, and a black quarterback.
Yeah.
We're not psychologically superior enough to being able to take charge of a football team. Now, again, I was hesitant because, again, the complexities of being able to fly a plane and direct a football team are not apples and apples. But the notion that a black person does not have the bandwidth, the capacity to being able to understand whether the most simplest things or even the most complex things is just not there. And that's something that has been echoed for hundreds of years, unfortunately.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I got a little story. My first trip to Sierra Leone, West Africa, was in 1980. And when you took Pan Am, direct flight into Monrovia, Liberia, 9.5-hour flight, direct, boom. But Monrovia is south of Sierra Leone. All right, they're neighboring countries. So you had to change flights to fly back to Sierra Leone, which may be a 15, 20-minute flight. All right, so when I walked on the tarmac to get my connecting flight, there was two black pilots. I had never seen a black pilot in my life, and I did not want to get on the plane. That's how brainwashed I was. I mean, that's conditioning.
Yes.
I didn't want to get on the plane because they were black, like Red Fox, like Sanford and Son. I want a white captain. I want a white pilot. That was my mindset back then because of the conditioning that I had gone through. Never seeing one before, thinking that, they can't fly because they're black and this and that. Wait, and I was in my 20s, believe it or not. I was in my 20s, okay? So if you take Trump's words and you're talking to someone that has bought into this thing of black people being inferior in some way, shape, or form, you're going to believe that DEI has a certain responsibility.
Yes.
Because you're that dumb. I mean, I was dumb.
So there's a difference between being dumb and being ignorant of the fact, right?
I was ignorant.
And so therefore that's I think is the point. But I think also too, that also shows, even from the side for those who do support DEI versus those who are against DEI, I think there should be a level of empathy for those who just aren't aware, right? because it wasn't necessarily your fault per se, right? That's what you were conditioned to believe. One of the things we had said before is that, growing up as a black man, or just as black in general, as a black man, a black woman, as a young black person, we are taught, and this is from generation to generation, you have to work twice as hard to get half as much as somebody else. We are constantly trying to prove ourselves. The show that we did on DEI and talking about the things about affirmative action to begin, and when I illustrated how far back that went, that was all the way back in the 1930s, when between President Roosevelt and then President Truman, of being able to do simplest things of protecting contractors and integrating the United States military. And so from that particular standpoint, which was before you were born, right, to the time that you were a young child and then growing up, where again they said, hey, you got to work twice as hard so you get half as much. White ice is colder than black ice. That concept that came stemming from our prominent neighborhoods of Rosewood and Baltimore's and Tulsa and everything else, where African Americans would not go to our black doctors, our black carpenters. We would always seek something else. We would go to, instead of going to HBCUs, we would go to predominantly white institutions.
The market drove that, though. Don't forget, the job market drove that.
The job market drove that, but
Yes.
but the rhetoric as well. It all aligned together, because why would you go to such a poor school where you're not being taught the best education? How in the world can you have a staff full of black PhDs or professors that are going to teach you the best education? There's no way. Why would you even do that? Why would you go to North Carolina Central instead of going to UNC? Why would you go?
Because you couldn't get in.
No, I mean, but it's not that. But for the most people couldn't get in. But what I'm saying is that the rhetoric of constantly belittling people of color or people from diverse backgrounds is something that stems all the way back from there. So to the point of the story that you shared, I think that that's where empathy has to come in the education, and the fact that we cannot perpetuate stereotypes of those who are not supportive of people who are beneficiaries of either affirmative action, diversity, equity, inclusion. It is only so that we are able to have a level playing field, because those pilots that were on both the jet as well as on that Black Hawk,
yeah,
right, were qualified pilots, and the air traffic controls were all qualified individuals. There was something, and again, even having this conversation right now, it's like
it's somewhat premature.
It is. It is very premature. I mean, we need to, because of the things that are happening right now within our community, right? But the fact that the way it's on the news and everyone jumping to conclusions, and then again for the president of the United States to not have the sympathy, the compassion for those or for all people that are involved, and so quick to try to place blame without even knowing anything. And again, because the president does receive information that the public does not receive right away, then there is an inclination to believe what the president is saying. And so therefore he's inferring that the person was either a woman or somebody that's protected within EEO, equal opportunity hire, DEI hire, affirmative action.
Well, let me just say, Ernest, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
let me just put this point out there is that the primary beneficiaries of DEI were white women.
Yes.
White women.
Yes.
I mean, come on. I mean, I worked in the private sector all of my adult life. All right. I had my own business for 9 years, which was based out of Africa. But all of my adult life, and I know, and I've had to say on a couple of occasions, either in Amsterdam, Tokyo, or Singapore, working with some of the best and brightest in the world, and sat down and told them, said, look, this is the way it's going to be. I am the smartest person in this room. If you doubt me, say it. And there could be 200 people on the line between being in the conference room and being that have dialed in, and I can say that. Okay, I had to be good. Number one, they saw me and they underestimated me, which I like that. I play dumb until I get the information I need, and I can take it from there, right? But I know that we have to be twice as good. I got a bachelor's. I got an MBA. I'm a project management professional. I got 30-some years of experience. I've seen it all. I come from the days of same-day funds, next-day funds, clearinghouse funds. I know the Fed. Look, I know the backbone of our economic system, okay? But I would never sit here and tell anybody that I'm psychologically superior, which I believe I am. Everybody should think they're psychologically superior. I think Trump thinks I know he's not psychologically superior because he's a C student. That may not have anything direct correlation to psychologically superior, but maybe he got that from Elon Musk. That term is something new, okay? He got that from Musk, and I would let me just defer to you, Ernest. You continue, and then we're gonna go on to RFK. Go ahead.
No. I mean, no. So all of this is you. This is a microcosm of the frustrations that the American people or some of our listeners may have. What you're expressing is it may be the same sort of frustration someone else may have as well. So I think it's healthy to kind of get it out there. But I think as an important to being able to kind of stay on task of what it is that we want to be able to do, how we want to be able to, what's the resolution to it, right? So once we've spoken some of the frustrations that we've had and some of the things that you've carried, like you're saying for decades, right? Because I mean, having to either play dumb in a situation or having to dim your light a little bit in order being able to get to a particular level, gain the information like you said, and then once you got the information and now I'm able here, watch me work, right? Or watch me, or like they said, let me cook. All right. And that's a tough space to be in. But again, getting back to this,
especially if you're only black face in the room out of 200 people globally and on site,
right?
And there's no other blacks, maybe one or two. You are the only black face in the room. I worked like that for a long period of time, where I was the only black person on my level. Okay, within the organization of 50 or 60,000 people. Okay, because I work with major financial institutions, always have, retired from one. Okay, so no. I mean, this DEI and all this kind of stuff, which the show will be released that we did on DEI. We had some technical problems, but that will be coming out shortly. I've seen it. I mean, he's talking about psychologically superior when we're beat down and talked down to and attacked all the time. That's part of our life. We're born into that. Mm-hmm. If anybody's psychologically superior, we are, because we survived.
The level of resilience that marginalized people tend to have is definitely far superior than your average person. Because again, most people will never experience things, well, people who aren't marginalized would never necessarily experience that type of scrutiny, discrimination, bigotry in their life at all, and so there is something to be said about that. But I think there's also too a level of shame that comes with it, because I mean, while one can be proud of the fact that I can be this resilient and withstand your barrage of insults and putting me down and everything else, it also speaks to the fact of the shameful part is that why should I even have to? When we talk about being in the greatest country in the world and all the principles and everything that we stand for, why is this still something that people are subjected to? Many of the things, as far as those who are in leadership positions, when speaking about this tragedy that has happened, I think for the most part, some have tried to be very reserved in their comments, but always still deferring back to the 47th president in some way of reverence to him, and kind of not necessarily addressing the things that are important to being able to give console and resolution to the people who are struggling with this. Because again, if we have another 20-year-old like you were at that time, but today, who's African American, but then now also believes that black people aren't as good pilots or whatever case it be. Because I don't know any black pilots personally. I don't have any people who are air traffic control personally. I've only seen white pilots and white air traffic control, and so therefore they must be better. And if anyone was black that was a part of any one of those teams, they're the reason why. If they were a woman, that's the reason why. If they were part of the LGBTQIA community, that's the reason why. And that in itself is inherently dangerous. And I think that, but I don't know who's going to call him out to stop it. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, let me say, as an aside, we did do a show, and we had a black commercial airline pilot on the show to tell people how to go about becoming a commercial pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about his genesis on how he became there. He became a pilot, and that show is there. I got to I'll try to look it up and put it in the show notes. Put a link in the show notes. So we did do a full show, I believe 2 episodes with Captain Robertson, Robert Robertson. All right, Captain Robertson. He flies for Alaska Airlines. Okay, and he's one of the few black pilots. I mean, I think we got less than 1% of the pilots are black.
That's
another problem. They need a lot of pilots.
I think it was something like 3.4% are African American, less than 1% are black women.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot, and then there's just not enough pilots.
Right, and they got a shortage. So now they're coming out and they are, trying to hire people. But this is the best time because, depending on the airline folks, Lufthansa, some of the American airlines and stuff like that, they will probably engage in getting you trained and sponsored so that way you can become a pilot. So, I'll try that avenue. That's it. I don't know how successful you will be, but try it. If you want to be a flyer, you grew up want to be a flyboy like I did and did not because I couldn't see, and then I heard so much about there's no black pilots and you can't get in and all that and I was wearing glasses. So I didn't pursue it, after that. But that's a space we need filling, along with doctors, of course. But that's a space we need. We need to fill spaces everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere. All right? Jobs. There are plenty of jobs. We need to fill them. Okay? So DEI is just Trump's way of appealing to his base, which are a bunch of supremacists. Well, a lot of them. I'm not going to paint them with a broad brush, but he appeals to that far right wing of his party that that there's hard support from them. Mm-hmm. All right, where they think he's God. Okay, so you got people out there like that. We can go with that, but let's talk about RFK. I want to get off Trump, but he's the president now, so we're going to have to include him in our discussions going forward. Unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But we got to stay on top of this guy. He's doing a lot of things that's going to be detrimental to us, I believe. So let's talk about RFK. Mm-hmm. I was looking at some of the hearings yesterday and how his niece, Caroline Kennedy, the daughter of Jackie and President Kennedy, was saying how this guy's not qualified. He's a liar, all right? He can't be trusted, which I also apply to, some people I know. But anyway, and the vaccinations, he's an anti-vaxxer, okay, which means he doesn't believe in vaccinations. He thinks they're bad, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, they ask him, are your children vaccinated? Yes. I mean, come on. You don't want other kids to be, but you vaccinate your own kids?
Yeah.
Come on. Give me a break. The man doesn't deserve to be up there anyway, but I give him the benefit of the doubt. The man's a liar. He got caught in it a couple times. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't necessarily need to give someone the benefit of doubt when they've already kind of shown their true colors, right? And which I am kind of disappointed with Congress, whether whomever is being confirmed, when they know that people who are ill qualified for the position in which they are going for, despite who makes the nominations. We should make sure that we have the best qualified individuals, because honestly, if we're being honest, that means the Attorney General was a DEI hire. RFK, for his vastly obtuse and strange viewpoint, is a DEI hire.
Why is that?
Because his ideology is now being included into the administration, because that's the purpose of diversity, equity, and inclusion, is that we're in that the whatever entity, right? So the administration, the country is being inclusive and equitable to people having an opportunity to gain employment. He is being nominated for a job, right? And so therefore, but the problem with it is that he has repeatedly had individuals who said he does not have the qualifications for this particular job. So in a sense, and I was being facetious about it because he's actually the opposite of it, but just in there saying that we could try to demonize it in that particular way, or weaponize the term as well. And I think that it's not necessarily helpful. But when you sit there and say about the denying of the vaccines, I mean, the Director of Health and Human Services has a broad level of oversight over everything that happens health-wise within this country.
Correct.
And if you were a person who yourself does not believe in taking vaccines for whatever religious and or strongly held opinion that you have, still being of the idea that vaccines are beneficial to those who would need them, right? Or for the vast population to being able to have them, and being able to acknowledge the benefits and the successes of having vaccines over the last however many years, 60, 70, 80 years.
He should know that, though. That's what I'm saying. I mean, he applies it to his personal life, but in public, he says something totally different.
Right.
I get disingenuous.
All right? It is absolutely disingenuous.
Okay? And let's move on.
Mm-hmm.